Madam Chair, I wish to commend the government of Mexico for convening these thematic panels to discuss matters of vital importance to our region. We have all committed to the realization of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, with the emphasis on leaving no one behind. Each of our countries faces our own challenges in achieving the 17 identified goals. Chair, I see our role this afternoon as examining how the OAS can play its part to support development and prosperity in our hemisphere. And in doing so, it is important to identify the challenges that we face. The countries of the Caribbean region are extremely vulnerable to external shocks, given our inherent risks as small island developing states. We are particularly vulnerable to climatic events, and our small size and relatively small populations affect our economic growth potential. Our high dependence on expensive imported fossil fuels to supply the energy needs of most of our countries affects the viability, competitiveness, and sustainability of our businesses. We also experience very high debt in the region. In fact, based on an ECLAC report, 40% of the debt burden of the Caribbean is incurred as a result of having to respond to natural disasters. Chair, this is the context in which we operate. What role is the OAS playing, and what role should it play in assisting its member states to achieve its development goals and prosperity? How can it assist us to reduce our vulnerabilities and build resilience? One of the ways to achieve economic development and prosperity is through the stimulation of economic growth that is sustainable and inclusive. Our economies in the Caribbean are largely reliant on micro, small, and medium enterprises that comprise, I am informed, more than 90% of businesses, 2/3 of the jobs, and approximately 30% of GDP. How do we assist micro, small, and medium enterprises to make them more productive, innovative, and more profitable? How do we add value to our abundant raw materials and primary agricultural produce? How do we encourage or facilitate public-private partnerships? The two main challenges that have been identified to small business development is the lack of adequate technical capacity and limited or no access to affordable financing. We all know the challenges that the OAS faces with financing, but this does not take away from the fact that it can still play a useful role in leveraging its resources by forging partnerships between and among states and with sub-regional, regional, and international organizations to share best practices and experiences and facilitate investments. The OAS, through the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, SEDI, has been assisting some of our CARICOM countries to adapt and implement the U.S. Small Business Development Center model to strengthen institutions that work with small businesses. We thank the U.S. government for the funding that it has provided in that regard. These centers are an important component of the strategy to improve the performance of small businesses in our economies and are adaptable to individual country needs. They are practical, providing the technical tools and expertise to provide quality one-on-one support services to MSMEs. These centers will also combine the technical, financial, and human resources of academia, the public and private sectors, using a results-based approach. There is continuous evaluation of the economic impact being generated by the efforts. There is also a focus on raising awareness to promote the inclusion of disaster risk management principles into the business planning process for MSMEs. This is key to building resilience and mitigating the negative impacts of climate change in a part of the world where vulnerability to natural disasters is undeniable. This is just one example of how the OAS can act as a facilitator to promote development amongst its member states. The OAS can also play a role in sharing best practices. And we cannot overemphasize how important it is as well for the national offices in member states to be made fully functional. They play an important coordinating role and can serve as an essential source of technical support to member states. I identified earlier the issue of high energy costs as a limiting factor. About a decade ago, the OAS provided substantial support to CARICOM member states, and especially those in the Eastern Caribbean with geothermal energy potential, to identify their geothermal energy capacity. For Dominica, we went on to build on the work of the OAS to pursue the development of our geothermal energy capacity. With the support of our many partners, we should begin construction of our first geothermal plant in 2018 as part of our goal of having 100% of our energy provided from more affordable renewable energy sources. The OIS should once again take its rightful place to play a coordinating and supporting role to member states to harness their indigenous sources of sustainable energy. One area to be considered is waste-to-energy. Waste-to-energy projects can assist our island states to better manage our waste, generate electricity, and reduce the impact on coastal and marine resources, hence protecting our tourism assets. Madam Chair, while we focus here on development and prosperity, the development agenda is inextricably linked to having strong democratic institutions, good governance, a respect for human rights and the rule of law. We must ensure that the resources of this institution are equitably applied to ensure that one is not disadvantaged over the other to the detriment of the whole. Thank you, Madam Chair.